with this new world order and
Mhm.
COVID and all of this that's going on now,
Yes.
um, moving forward, how will you be moving forward?
Oh gosh. There is so much going on right now because let me see what happened. Last year, I created the Film Collective, and that is a bi-monthly screening of short films internationally. So we created that, and we've had pretty good success with that. But what we ended up having to do, because we're actually having a 3-day film screening, June 30th, July the 1st, and July the 2nd. What we ended up having to do with that was we ended up having to go fully digital for right now because with COVID, I don't think there are going to be too many people that want to sit in a room to watch a film because I know I don't want to do it. And I also created, and Miss Tia was a part of this, a conversation with, which was absolutely phenomenal. I loved the fact that I got a group of female minority content creators in one room
Yes, you did.
to talk about their journey as independent filmmakers. Because oftentimes when you talk about independent filmmakers, unfortunately, women are left out. You always see the guys up front. And
Right.
you have some phenomenal women directors, filmmakers, screenwriters. And, I just wanted to highlight that. So there's a lot going on. But the biggest pivot for us was going more digital.
And once again, we are here with Eli and Lou Bivens of Eli Lou Entertainment. So I usually like to when I'm talking with filmmakers and content creators, one of the things that is always curious as to me is what made you to decide that you wanted to be filmmakers and content creators?
So, we've always been writers since we were younger.
Mm-hmm.
And to be transparent, that was our outlet and our expression. And many times we didn't feel like we had one, like that was our voice, and everything we did was writing and creativity and just, our upbringing. We had a lot of we didn't have much growing up, but we had creativity and we
Mm-hmm.
had creative people around us. So just using that to tell stories as we grew, whether it was poetry and then it would morph into something else. Like we used to write short stories and we would, once we, got older, we wanted to put that in film format.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a process to get back to, our filmmaking ambitions, but we've always had that in us, that writing ability, the ability to tell a story, because when you don't have much, and you can't access all the things that everyone else has, you have to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our.
Because a lot of brick and mortar things are just being put on the back burner. So you had to make that shift. And this other podcast that I just joined, the Black Filmmakers Lounge, created by a good brother, Michael Melvin, we talked about that, as far as how filmmakers are going to pivot in the new normal. And if your digital portion of your business is not picking up and you're not adding that, you're going to wither and die on the vine. So that has become a really big part of our makeup.
But with that said,
Mm-hmm.
how do you, as far as production, how do you think filmmakers will pivot in the actual production of filmmaking?
Oh, well, we actually talked about this yesterday. The major studios have released guidelines on how they will approach filmmaking on sets. They will have RNs or people trained in certain things on their set from now on. You cannot go on a set in Hollywood now where there's not someone who is there taking your temperature. Craft services and all of that's going to change. Whereas they used to have like an open buffet, they're now going to go to packaged food. So everyone has an individual packages. It's also changing to where if you had someone on set, just visiting, that's something that they're no longer going to be doing. So they're only going to have essential people on set. So we were discussing yesterday, filmmakers actually using studio guidelines and then just paring it down to the level where you are,
So how do you pare down having an RN on set, especially for an indie filmmaker? Like that's definitely a conversation that we're going to be having. And not just an RN, but packaged food, much more expensive than, running to the store and grabbing some stuff, and you can make a real pretty display.
Right.
25, $30. So the budget is definitely going to change for indie artists.
Well, you know what? The industry has actually created a job where you don't have to be an RN. You could just be someone that they train to take a temperature, because you can go to CVS, you can get you a digital thermometer, and so everybody that comes on this, okay, you got to go buy masks, you got to buy hand sanitizer, that going forward, that's got to be a part of your set. And then, you could actually hire a friend and say, hey, I'm shooting. I just need you to come down on set, wear a mask, wear some gloves, sit at this table. I'm going to give you a couple of digital thermometers. And it's as the people who are actually going to be on the set come in, you take their temperature. If it's a certain, 104, you can't come on set.
Oh, no, it's 101. It's 101, 104.
It's 101? Oh, okay. So 101 and 104. So if you're 101 or 104, so they don't necessarily have to be a certified nurse. They just have to have somebody with some common sense. Hey, you can, what you doing? What you doing, Saturday? Nothing. Want to make a couple dollars? Sure. Okay. You come down, you got to wear your gloves, you got to wear your mask, and you just take everyone's temperature as they're coming in. As far as packaged foods, because on a lot of my film sets, I was the craft services. It's just, it is what it is.
Listen,
so
same here.
Yeah, you know how it works. So if you're preparing food, then once again, go to the dollar store, get the little containers, go to the market, get a dozen donuts, whatever, and then just take them out and put them in, the little individual bags.
That's
you
true.
got to get creative. You got to get creative.
That's true.
Because if you're not being creative, you're not going to survive. Because if a filmmaker goes on a set and they're not doing their due diligence and they're not making everyone safe and taking this thing seriously, then what you better do is you better turn around and walk out.
Amen.
And then it becomes a question of liability. Filmmakers are now, if they're not doing it, you better get you some insurance.
Yeah, and
on your set.
That's a fact. I actually sent out a little blurb to a couple of friends of mine who were interested in participating on set in some capacity, because I have to get friends and family to help out. That's the support. And I told a group of them, 3 different groups, I said, listen, this might be an opportunity for me to throw some money your way. We can help each other. If you can create a cleaning company that meets the guidelines for, sanitizing the set. And that way, we kind of keep the money in our circle and, help one another and still meet the guidelines. And not, because we have to be responsible. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And that's the conversation that we had yesterday. The fact that even in the times that are happening now, there are major opportunities, because I was talking about how in the Great Depression, some of the major companies that you have now started in the Great Depression because they feel the need. So if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, this is a phenomenal time for you, because if you have a group of people that are not employed right now, or they're just looking for additional income, you could actually start a company that you hire out people. They come on set, and that's all they do is take temperatures. We're gonna you can have this person for the day for $300. They're on set all day. All they do is take temperatures. Cleaning companies, you are going to have to sanitize your sets. So if you have a cleaning company, or you've been thinking about starting a cleaning company, every single thing that shoots is going to have someone come in and sanitize. That's just the way it is now. So if you are a go-getter type of person, this could be a windfall.
That's right.
You know, you get in on the right side of it, as opposed to after it happens and other people are starting like, oh man, I should have did that. Now is the time to do it.
That's right.
You know, especially if you have people that are unemployed, we can contract you out. And not just for independent sets, but for, you know, industrials, whatever.
That's right.
Whatever. Yeah. So we talked about that yesterday. You better get on it. And you know, that the money is out there for the taking. You just got to be willing to go out there and get it.
Well, so change is difficult for a lot of people. And with that being said, and as a writer, how, you know, I've been thinking about, how do I write a love scene in an era of COVID? You know, do actors want to be that close to one another? And you know, how do I make that happen? Is that something that you've thought about, or was that part of the conversation, or what would you suggest?
That was part of the conversation that we had as well. I watched a film last night with Helen Mirren. Oh gosh, I can't remember the gentleman that was in a movie with her. He played Gandalf in a Lord of the Rings. Okay. I cannot remember. Ian McGregor? Was it Ian? Whatever. But I watched that movie last night, and I put up the post and I said, people need to watch this if they want to know how to shoot a film in post-COVID America. And I also recommend that every filmmaker who is actually a filmmaker, they need to study old films from the 30s to 40s and the 50s, because it's not always about two actors actually being up close with each other to show intimacy. Because in a lot of films in the 40s and the 50s, when, you know, it was a certain, you had to be a certain kind of way, and you weren't on camera with your tongue down someone's throat, but you were married. You saw the separate beds. So now you have to get creative in your screenwriting. And we were actually talking about love scenes. And how do you write a love scene today? And we were talking about, you could have a couple, they could be having an intimate dinner, sitting across from the table with each other, having a conversation. Now, as adults, we all know what's about to happen. You know, they get up from the table, they're laughing, giggling, whatever, and they walk in the room and they close the door. Because the most powerful sexual tool that people have is their imagination. See, I can show you or I can suggest it. And oftentimes, if I suggest it, you end up making up your own conclusion, which is probably 100 times wilder than what I could have done if I had actually written it where you could see it, you know? And we referenced old songs, you know, Teddy Pendergrass, Turn Off the Lights, Light a Candle. You know what's about to pop off if somebody talking about turn off the lights, light a candle, or you know, Ronald Isley is like Between the Sheets. Yeah. Come on, you can make that connection. So as a screenwriter, you have to now be more creative and more subtle in your writing. It can't just be A, B, C, D, and E. It's got to be E, F, and G as well. You know, and you just have to be more creative in your screenwriting.
And I happen to think that's awesome, because I think the art of invoking our viewers' imagination has been lost on in your face. Let me see, you know, that's not real. Everything is fake. And so this will usher in, as we usher into a new phase of our lives, because this is moving forward.
Yes.
will also be ushering in some older traditions that I think, need to come back. It might
Yes.
instill some values along the way, so it'll be a wonderful opportunity for newer or younger generations to have that experience, because I think they've missed out on it.
You better switch it up. If you're a screenwriter or filmmaker, you just have to learn how to do new things. If you're a cinematographer, you're going to have to learn how to shoot differently. You're going to have to learn how to do that. And if you're not studying film and studying the way, and I always say, successful people mirror themselves after successful people. So if you're trying to find out how filming will be done in the new world, production companies are starting to, film things again. You really need to be watching every single thing they do, and then just scale it down. You can't do what they do, but they have a camera, you have a camera. They have lights, you have lights. Their stuff is more expensive and more advanced, but a camera is a camera is a camera. You point it and it records an image. So you could look at what they're doing and say, okay, I can do that on a smaller set. And actually, I think it's going to be a good thing, because what it's going to do is it is going to force filmmakers to become more skillful in how they tell a story. You see what I'm saying? Like you said, the art of subtlety has been lost. Now it's just, I'm just going to bash you over the head with it. Yeah. And sometimes you're sitting there like, really? Really?
Again?
It's like they've dumbed things down to the lowest common denominator.
Yes.
No mental stimulation.
No, none.
Right.
None. It's like, bam, right in your face. Like, wow, really? No foreplay at all.
None.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's not even funny, actually, but it's very interesting because, I always say people need to really understand the art of seduction. And the art of seduction doesn't always mean, sex. What seduces us?
Right.
Fighting, drama, action, all kinds of things seduces us as a society. And we have to really appreciate the art of seduction. And I guess this is where this is actually wonderful for us to be in this position because there are I don't want to say there are we don't have any predecessors, but there's no one before us in this time, this COVID, this Black Lives Matter movement. It's not a moment, it's a movement. So we are at an amazing time in the present and in history.
Yes.
To really capitalize on this from a creative standpoint. And
absolutely.
Do you have any books that you've written? Because you have a plethora of information, advice. Like every chance I get, if you're saying something, I have to hear what it is. Or even if you ask a question, it's so thought-provoking because I am new to the entertainment industry in this capacity. And some things I don't think about. Never even crosses my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a wonderful question. Let me do some research. So I might be behind the scenes, trying to find the answers to what you're asking. And it is just so good for people like me. So do you have like a book or a site or something where writers and artists can go to get more information?
He's like E.F. Hutton.
Yeah. Like
E.F. Hutton. Wow. If I talk to people, listen.
In the film industry.
Don't tell my wife that.
Your wife is lovely. She's a lovely woman. Yes.
She's something. She keeps me grounded. She be like, yo, I got to keep you regular because you get a big head thinking you all that. I'm like, wow, thank you. I'm like, I get appreciation when I go outside. I don't get none up in here. But I'm actually in the process of writing a book right now, because it's amazing the amount of inboxes I get with people asking me certain questions. But here's the funny thing. A lot of what people hear me talk about it, I learned it from somebody else. I've never gone to film school. I've never gone to film school. I've never stepped foot inside of a film school. So everything that I've learned has been on a set and has been self-taught, and it's been listening to people who, okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to learn anything, listen to people that know what they're talking about. And I'm really big on educating myself. So I make it a point to be in school every single day. I'm always reading something or listening to a podcast to expand my knowledge base, because I don't know anything, and I know that I don't know anything. So in order to learn, you gotta involve yourself in the learning process. So everything that I talk about, somebody taught me, whether they know it or not. So I when I get these inboxes, I'm always amazed, because I'm saying to myself, man, all you got to do is pick up your phone and Google it. But some people just don't have the wherewithal to do that. Some people just don't know where to go. So about a month ago, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll just, write a small book giving people outlines on what to do from start to finish. Nothing involved, because you want to keep it as simple as possible so as to not overwhelm people, but give them, the type of knowledge that, they can use it as a reference. They say, okay, well, he said at this stage, this is what you should be doing. So I'm actually in the process of doing that now. But now they can also find me on the Black Filmmakers Lounge on Facebook. We do a podcast every Saturday morning. The gentleman who started, his name is Michael Melvin. He's also on Facebook. Myself and a gentleman that I've known for years by the name of Louis Duvall. So the three of us get on a podcast, and we discuss everything independent film, and especially with Black independent filmmakers. It's going pretty well. Instagram, I'm on Instagram on Floyd Marshall Jr. and also the IFAP Awards, and I put a lot of my stuff on there as well. And then Facebook, I'm always posting something on Facebook every single day. I'm always posting on Facebook and in different film groups, because if I know it, you're going to know it. I'm not going to learn something and then not share it, because I just want to see filmmakers be the best they can absolutely be. I want them, and it's something that I stress all the time, I want filmmakers to treat this as a business. I always tell filmmakers, in actuality, you're not a filmmaker, you're in the business of making film. So filmmakers, especially Black filmmakers, have to make that shift to not say, well, I'm just a filmmaker. No, you're not. Your film is a product, and that's how you have to think. So anytime I learn something, be it on the creative side and especially on the business side, I'm going to share it and let people know where they can go and get it.
Now, being in the business of film,
yes,
takes a whole lot.
Yes, it does.
I mean, because for some of us, we wear every hat in our business, from soup to nuts. What advice would you give someone who's in that position, especially someone who's new, or even someone who's been doing it for a while and just feels like they're stuck?
Well, my advice would be, as I just said, is to learn. If Denzel Washington and Will Smith can still have an acting coach, if those two can still have acting coaches, as phenomenal as they are, if Al Pacino, and I'm just using, household names, the Tom Hankses of the world, can go to people to learn how to do a certain role, then you as a filmmaker, if you feel as though you're stuck, then you just need to reference people that have been doing it for a while to see what they did, but to also ask questions. Someone always has an answer to a question, and it may not be the person that you would normally think would have the answer to the question, because sometimes you can ask people that are outside of filmmaking because they have an unbiased perspective because they're not in the midst of it. So if you're stuck, it could just be something that's mental. But if it's if you're stuck creatively, then go ask your peers. Hey man, sis, I'm trying to do something, but I'm hitting a wall. If this has happened to you, what did you do? And then sometimes if you're stuck, you just got to put it down and walk away from it.
And I agree with that. And on that note, we have to wrap up.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
You are so welcome.
Thank you for the conversation. It was so engaging. I was so excited when I saw your name. And before we close out, we're going to let Tracy Cruz say her thing.
All right.
Okay. Well, I just have one quick.
Okay. And I'll give you a quick answer.
Okay. Dead or alive, who would be your dream person to direct in one of your projects?
Oh my goodness.
Dead or alive?
You know who I would love to direct? I would really like to direct Denzel Washington. Now I know that's the cliche answer, but his range is just unbelievable. And I'm being a little selfish because while directing him, I would also be asking him a million questions. Because if you there on the set, brother, I'm going to pick your brain. So if we're in between takes and we're in between the scene, Mr. Washington, so what would you say on how to do, or whatever, because he is so intelligent, it's unbelievable. So yes, it would be Mr. Washington.
Okay, I just had to ask.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't ask, you never know, right? Again,
got that right.
So much, Floyd, for taking some time out of your
business.
You
are welcome.
To sit down and talk to us. You were absolutely amazing to talk to. I can't wait. Can't wait for the next IFAP Awards, even if it's going to be on a different platform. I know it's going to be phenomenal, just the same.
Yes.
And so we will stay in touch, and we will keep an eye out. And do you have anything you want to say as we close out the show?
Learn. Never be afraid to learn something new. Never be afraid to ask a question. Know that you don't know. If you know that you don't know, you learn so much. Stay away from people that think they know everything because they will drag you down. So always be open to learning.
Preach. All right. Preach.
You heard him? Mr. Floyd Marshall Jr.
Yes. Put some respect on it.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. And you young ladies have a phenomenal